Good evening, everyone. We're here on another Tuesday. It's a special Merry Christmas edition of Open Season. Merry Christmas to everybody out there. The Festivus episode last year was a banger, so we're hoping to put it down just like we did last year. And we got a lot that we're tossing around with the crew. We've got Alex Tordai, Justin Elaine. Frankie Bradica is a little bit tardy tonight, but he will be joining us at 7:45. As we're going to talk about the Patriots not making the playoffs for the first time since 2008. We're all praying that Cam doesn't come back next year. Who do we want to talk about as the next quarterback under center for your New England Patriots? As Brady continues to make the Falcons hate their life, and Mahomes outdueled Breeze, the Steelers are kind of falling apart at the seams. And the NBA guys, it tips off tonight. The Nets are underway right now against the Warriors, and the Nets are out on top early. So we're going to be talking about that. And James Harden, what he wants for Christmas is a new team. So let's start it out, guys. The 2020 Patriots season has finally come to an end. There will be no football for the New England Patriots in January this year. It's going to be a different feeling here in Foxborough, but losing to Tua and the Dolphins kind of making a playoff push here. And first time the Patriots haven't made the playoffs in a long time. Obviously, they didn't get off to a great start. The Patriots are scoring like 2 points a game or something in the first quarter. What do you guys think about the loss, and what do you think about the rest of the season? We got 2 games left. You want to see Cam play out the string? You want to see Stidham? Let's leave it up to you.
We suck. Get Cam out of here. We're all done with it. The experiment's over. I mean, the only reason to keep playing Cam is if you want to keep losing and get a higher draft pick, which I guess I'm fine with. I'd also like to see what Stidham has. I don't think he has much. I definitely think that there's a little something to him, but every time he's gotten in, he's disappointed. Maybe it's because they haven't given him the starting nod. I really don't know for sure, but when he's come in relief duties, it hasn't looked great either. So neither quarterback has much to work with, to both of their credits. But right now, I'd be perfectly fine drafting a guy in the first round.
I say let Jacoby Myers be our quarterback the rest of the season. He threw the nicest ball all year. I mean, we're going to lose anyways. You might as well make it interesting. Stidham was a decent option to look at, but clearly Bill doesn't think he's ready. He didn't even dress for a lot of the games earlier on in the year, which is so odd because we thought he had the job locked up before Cam got here. I want us to lose the next 2 games. I know it's going to be hard to lose against the Jets, even though somehow they just screwed themselves this past weekend. I really want us to go after a veteran quarterback next year, the likes of Matt Stafford. Someone come in and you can draft. Defense is already pretty good. We obviously need some better linebackers, maybe defensive line. But we have $100 million cap space next year. Get some offensive talent, and Matt Stafford comes in. I think that's better than a whole rebuild, which I don't think Bill really wants to do anyways.
Yeah, I think Matt Stafford sounds really good, but I feel like it's always with the Patriots. They're never going to do what I actually want them to do. I feel like they're going to go cheap again and get a veteran. I don't know what you guys think about that. And they're probably not going to take a quarterback that high. What do you guys think about is likely? I mean, for me, I'm just so done with the Cam Newton experiment. I feel like Bill, for some reason, is still being loyal to him. Like, I feel like he's being more loyal to Cam Newton than he has any other player who hasn't performed outside of maybe Chad Ochocinco back in the day. I mean, he couldn't pick up the offense, and they still kind of played him through that entire year. But who can we remember who didn't perform and still had the trust of Bill Belichick? I mean, this deep in the season, there's really nothing to play for. Why not see what Stidham has? You got to assume that Stidham's going to play some minutes here. But it just feels like the Patriots are probably going to cheap out and go for a veteran. I know you guys are talking about drafting a quarterback. What do you think is the most likely thing that they do? I mean, Stafford would be nice. I just don't know how likely that is.
I don't think
I think it's most likely that, we do exactly what you said and they don't draft a quarterback or take a guy in the second round who falls, or, it's Bill. He's smarter than everyone. He's going to make He's going to make the move that none of us see coming, and probably draft the N'Keal Harry of quarterbacks. So that I mean, that's probably what's coming, even if he does draft one. So I think that's what's most likely.
What I want more than anything, if we're picking an offensive player in the first round, Bill, get out of the room. You don't have any say in this pick. Because clearly, he cannot draft offensive talent in the first round. He's great at defensive talent in the first round, but offensively, it's just awful. And I don't think that any of those quarterbacks are, the top 3, maybe 4 are going to make it, to the 15th pick we'll have. But there are so many damn good receivers. Alabama, they have 2 elite. LSU was an elite receiver. The guy I want more than anything is Pitts, the tight end out of Florida. You bring him in, he is a game changer. He can open up the field just like Kittle does in San Fran, and you just put pieces around him, and you have a decent quarterback like Garoppolo just game managing. Kittle changes everything for them, and this guy would literally change this offense in a heartbeat.
Yeah, I mean, you bring up something with Garoppolo there. I think that's actually one of the scenarios that's somewhat possible for the Pats to do to replace their quarterback. I mean, you got to assume with the way that he's played this year, he has kind of played himself out of being a starter in the NFL almost this year with his performance. Nick Mullins has come in and been better than him. And you wonder if the Patriots might be able to get him for cheap. He's familiar with the system. Another guy we talked about last week is probably going to be seeing his way out of town in Jacksonville is Gardner Minshew. I think he might be another guy that the Pats might be able to get. I don't think he's great or anything like that, but I'm trying to think of the most likely scenarios that they could possibly do. Maybe you get someone like Gardner Minshew on the cheap. But the Patriots are certainly trying to figure out what they need to do. And I pray to God that they don't bring back Cam Newton. I feel like they've kind of brought up the fact that Cam Newton's familiar with this offense, but it's familiar to the tune of he literally, if you were to do a top 5 touchdowns of the year for Cam, he's got 5 passing touchdowns. You wouldn't even have to cut out any touchdowns that he's thrown. I mean, so it's crazy that he's only thrown for 5 touchdowns this year, and they definitely need to address it with something. He can't be back next year.
I mean, you got to think in the history of Bill being here, every time there's a year where things don't go to plan, the next year Bill usually spends some money, especially if he's embarrassed the way they've been embarrassed this year. I don't think we're going to go cheap at quarterback. I think it's going to be a veteran just because Bill, only has 5 years max. Maybe he's not going to want to have a rookie come in and have to groom him or anything like that. I really hope it's not Garoppolo. He has a lot more money on his contract left. Stafford is 2 years. I think it's $42 million. I mean, if Kirk Cousins is making $30 million, I'll take Stafford for $22 million. He's probably one of the most underrated quarterbacks in the NFL since he got into the NFL. Draft number 1, and he's been in freaking Detroit his whole career. Never makes the playoffs. He has elite talent, and he's a tough as hell. What do you play with, 4 broken ribs this past weekend or something? Get him in there, get some receivers, draft the tight end. You have an offensive line, and let Bill coach up the defense. Right there, you're 10-6, 11-5 maybe.
Yeah, definitely. I'd love to see Stafford in here, and honestly, like you said, $20 million is the going rate for quarterbacks these days. The Teddy Bridgewater, you kind of have to expect these deals. We just haven't seen the Patriots do it. I mean, they let Tom Brady go because they weren't willing to spend $20-25 million on the best quarterback of all time. So it's just we've seen them nickel and dime at that position for a long time.
That's not entirely true. He told them he was leaving. It had nothing to do with the money. He was gone. It's fine. I mean, Bill was going to offer him maybe a little bit less than the Bucs did, but Bill was prepared to pay him around $20-25 million. Brady wanted out.
I know you think so. I feel still, if they offered him $25 million, he would have been a 2-year, $25 million. I think the biggest thing was they weren't willing to give him the long-term commitment. But who knows? As we flip the page and talk about Brady, he was down 24-7 to the Falcons. Comes back, throws the first touchdown of the year to Antonio Brown. I didn't think we'd be saying this late into the season. The first touchdown to Antonio Brown. So they're still looking pretty good. Obviously, that's no good to get down 17-0, 24-7 to the Atlanta Falcons. But coming back again, and they look like they're in a position to solidify their playoff push.
Yeah,
it doesn't matter how far. Oh, go ahead, Alex.
I love the Bucks. I love the Bucks. I really do. Antonio Brown showing up, Brady getting into the late months in the year for the season. I mean, this is where he shines. This is where a lot of these players shine. I mean, they have no major injuries on their team. They've got talent galore. Let's see what they can do. Their defense scares me a little bit with their secondary and the youth they have back there, but their front seven's legit, man. Devin White is a problem, and I like what the Bucks have to bring to the field. I mean, Devin White had 3 sacks and 13 tackles last week. He's probably, defensive MVP caliber player at some point in his career. Reminds me a lot of Patrick Willis. That's how good he is. And they've got a lot of great defensive linemen. I'm loving the Bucks right now. I'm riding high on them. Come out of the NFC, I think it's them, the Saints, and the Packers, and that's it for me for real contenders.
The Bucks have the talent. The problem is they spent 3/4 of the year of Arians trying to have Brady play this chuck, I don't forget what the term is, but just throw the ball everywhere. And Brady's more precision passing, dumping, like it's more of a science rather than just throwing the ball 60 times a game down the field as far as you can throw it. And it's clear in the first half of the Falcons game, it was Arians' offense. Nothing was working. If Brady doesn't have time to get the ball out, he's going to get sacked. He can't move. If you let him run the offense where 5-yard ins and outs, he gets the ball out quick, and that's how the offense rolls. The problem is that they're going to have to either go into Green Bay or New Orleans. And I don't see them beating, definitely not New Orleans. And Green Bay is pretty damn good this year. And if they have to go to Green Bay, it's going to be tough. I mean, Aaron Rodgers is going to throw all over that secondary. It's a shame because I think the Bucs next year will get the Super Bowl, maybe even win it, because they'll get more secondary help. It's just this year, they're doing the best they can. And unfortunately, they spent 3/4 of the year with Arians and Brady going at it of how they want to run the offense.
Yeah. I mean, you guys both bring up good points, and I feel like the Bucs almost remind me a lot of the Patriots last year. Like it's like they're kind of like front running, just kind of beating a lot of the teams that we, beating a lot of like the tomato can teams, and they really haven't been that battle tested. They're 0-2 against the Saints. They've lost a lot of games against good competition. They're kind of cleaning up against the people that suck, and they haven't really won any big time games. As we bring on Frankie Bradica, fresh as he is over there with a little haircut. Frankie, welcome to the show. We're talking a little bit about how we feel about the Bucs playoff chances after Week 15. What do you think?
Look, I'm driving the Bucs will not make the playoff bandwagon, but they're going to the playoffs, and they might pull an upset. I mean, I still don't have a lot of faith in them. I really don't. I still think they're forcing the ball to Antonio Brown. I still don't think that Brady and Arians seem to be on the same page. But look, I've seen Brady bring a lot of teams back that were worse than this, just like he did the other day.
Yeah, can't argue with that.
Yeah, but the thing is that when Brady was here, he'd have to go through the Jaguars, or he'd have to go through the Texans. Like, we're talking Aaron Rodgers, Drew Brees. Drew Brees didn't look great, but the Saints, I think, are the most complete team in the NFL. I don't see him going through in the Superdome and beating them.
Do you guys think the Seahawks have any chance? Because I think their defense is going to get torn up. I love their offense, but their defense just isn't doing it for me.
The Seahawks can go somewhere because their defense is situationally good. When they get a lead and they're allowed to let their only 2 pass rushers pin their ears back and rush the passer, they're fine. When they allow Dunlap to actually rush the passer because they have a lead, they're fine. Dunlap can't protect against the run, and when it's close, they don't really get into 3rd and long situations. They're not a great defense. But can they cause turnovers and hit the quarterback? Yeah. And Russell Wilson's a winner.
It's also funny to think about Russell Wilson. What did he get last year? Like $80 million. Like, his contract was set up with something crazy. They can't afford to pay to have a secondary. They have great offensive talent, but the defense isn't the Legion of Boom anymore. Those guys are all gone, and you would wonder if Russell Wilson ever had some help on the defensive end, especially the last 5 years, how many times he could at least got to the NFC Championship game.
He has
Because
a
all
Hall
he
of
does-
Fame linebacker.
What's that?
He has a Hall of Fame linebacker back there.
Yeah,
Yeah, but-
Bobby.
Yeah.
Bobby
Bobby
Wagner's a Hall of Famer.
Wagner.
Yeah, he's Hall of Famer.
Of course.
He doesn't have nothing on the defense, is what I mean. He's got something. It's
Is
just
Shaquille- is
that,
Shaquille Griffin still on
in the
that team?
middle 20s for the last 5 years. In defense, I believe since that Super Bowl, they're starkly under 25th in the league in total defense. But this year, again, they have good third down defense. And ever since Dunlap got there, I believe they're middle of the pack in terms of pressuring the quarterback.
You think that Sony Michel's bad? They could have had Chubb as well. They drafted Penny, 26 in that draft. We took Michel, 30.
Penny's good, but injured. Sony's bad and injured. You see what I'm saying?
Hey, Sony had a little coming out party this weekend. He was looking good.
He's
10
fully
carries
healthy.
for 75 yards or something. It's the best you'll see him do.
I'd rather see Rex Burkhead with a cast playing than Sony Michel.
I
I hate Sony Michel so much.
I'd rather see Antoine Smith come out
being
there.
the best running back we've had in a while.
That's only so relying on this whole season is that Harris is our future running back. Now, do I think he's a 3-down back? Probably not, but he could probably get 1,000 yards next year, especially behind this offensive line.
Hey, don't forget, we got a Pro Bowl punter. That's the other silver lining that's come out of this.
Yep.
Special teams, baby. 3 phases of the game.
You know, Bill was so pumped when he got that. He probably didn't shut up the whole day talking about it.
I'm sure he didn't. It was great when they were trying to press him on like whether or not Cam will be the quarterback next weekend too. It seems like there may actually be a change there. One of the things that we should talk about, though, we talked about this last week. Can anyone beat the Chiefs? Should we just hand them the trophy now because they outduel New Orleans in a game 32-29. Obviously, they're battle tested. They're kind of beating everyone. They can come from behind. They can do it in a multitude of different ways. Mahomes really looks invincible. He's throwing 60-yard bombs off his back foot, pure and precise. Is there anybody that can beat the Chiefs?
Yeah,
I think
the
a lot
Bills.
of teams can beat the Chiefs. Go ahead.
Yeah. I love the Bills. They're my team that I think is poised to take down the Chiefs. They've got everything on defense. They've got everything on offense they need. I think that obviously the Chiefs have crazy firepower, but that Bills defense is no joke. And what Josh Allen has done this season, he's an MVP candidate. I mean, I really think that out of the AFC in the Super Bowl, because that's what we're talking about. Are we talking about the Super Bowl here? Who could beat them in the AFC, or are we talking NFC too?
I just feel like, is anyone going to punch them out? Are they going to go? Is anybody going to knock them out when it all comes down to it?
You're not going to knock out the Chiefs. You might run the ball 40 times for 200-plus yards and beat the Chiefs, but you're not going to knock the Chiefs out. They're too good for that. And I said it last week. We're still there, but we're moving away from you need a defense to win a championship. And the Chiefs are a prime example of why not. You got to keep that guy off the field. Like we used to have to keep Peyton off the field, but we picked him off once a game. You have to keep Mahomes off the field.
So I hate saying this because I'll get laughed at, but there's one thing that will work out for a young quarterback this year going to the Chiefs. There's no fans in the stands at that stadium. That is one of the hardest places to play as a road opponent. If the Browns somehow just run the ball with Chubb and Hunt all game long, the Chiefs don't have a good run defense. You get a turnover here, you get a fumble there, maybe, and let just Baker just do his dump offs. That's probably it. Maybe the Titans. It's going to be one of those two. I just feel like the Steelers were there, and then I don't know what the hell happened. Ben Roethlisberger looks like he doesn't know how to throw a football, and they don't have any run game, and you need a running game to beat the Chiefs.
Yeah, I can't. I have no idea what's going on with the Steelers. I mean, watching that game last night, Ben Roethlisberger really can't throw, and it feels like, the first 10 games he really could throw a little bit more, and it was kind of like, they almost like throw to set up the run. It's just like they're putting way too much of their offense on Ben Roethlisberger. coming back from an injury at this age, it's just way too much for him to be able to handle. And it seems like they're kind of spiraling out of control at the wrong time.
It looks bad. My, how quickly that turned around. And they were like, the ship of the Steelers has been sinking all season. It's been slowly losing water. But the last 3 weeks, it's just punctured. I mean, it's just going down. They cannot run the ball. Until they run the ball, they can't do anything. This passing game is good enough. Ben Roethlisberger is good enough. Even without Bud Dupree, the defense is good enough. Until they can run the ball, they're not a complete team, and they're incomplete in some of the worst ways.
I have to look up to see who the Bengals quarterback was last night, but he looked like
Ryan Finley.
Ryan Lindley. I think you could see him at your local grocery store a couple weeks ago.
Yeah, exactly. He's probably packing groceries. He's 38. He's coming off surgery 40, 50 times a game. This defense should be getting threes and outs every single time. Just run the ball, but they can't. Their offensive line's banged up, and James Conner just not going to do it for them. They don't have any running game. That's the problem. I feel like if Cleveland went in there in the playoffs, Cleveland would knock them off. It's sad because I thought they were going to go to the Super Bowl 3 weeks ago. Defense was legit. They keep getting injuries, and they have the most weapons other than the Buccaneers and all the Chiefs. They probably have the third most weapons in all football in terms of the receivers. Why are they not putting up 30 points a game? They're the Bengals. I feel
like Ben Roethlisberger can't throw it further than 5 yards down the field, or he's going to get hit. I mean, it's just. We're really just seeing a different Ben Roethlisberger over the last couple of weeks.
Who do you think can throw it farther, Hoyer or Ben Roethlisberger at this point?
Roethlisberger. Can we not be silly? They're throwing short passes to help set up the run game they don't have. If Ben had a running game, he could still throw the ball relatively far. If you're asking him to do it a half a dozen times a game, he can still throw it much further than Brian Hoyer. You know what Ben can't do? Throw the ball 40 times a game across 16 games. It's not gonna hold up. But can he throw it further than Hoyer or half the quarterbacks in the league? Probably still, yeah.
I get Hoyer to give him the Nerf ball. Remember that Mike Beck threw out of the stadium with the whistle? I mean, yeah, it's not looking good for them. I thought the Rams loss to the Jets was bad. You on Monday Night Football got embarrassed by the Bengals.
So we've talked a lot about the passing attacks on some of these teams. We always fail to give enough credit to Derrick Henry, who is running towards potentially a 2,000-yard year. You may think that that's out of the question, but he only needs 321 yards over the next 2 games to be able to do that. And at the pace that he's rushed for over the last 3 games, if he keeps that up, he'd be able to get that. So Derrick Henry throwing a cornerback into next week. His stiff arms have been absolutely amazing. We keep talking about Mahomes as the MVP, but Derrick Henry really has to get some consideration. I mean, he's basically got 1,700 yards and 15 touchdowns. What do you guys think about his chances at potentially 2,000 yards, and how serious is his MVP candidacy this year?
I think he's absolutely got a case for it, but this isn't the year for a running back to take it. I think it's going to either A-Rod or it's going to Patrick Mahomes. Having said that, he's definitely in the mix. If he gets over 2,000 yards, he will be a top 3 vote getter behind those two. I think that's a no-brainer, but unfortunately it's a quarterback-driven league, and I don't think that they're going to be handing that MVP trophy to Derrick Henry over one of the NFL's golden boys. You're going to see Derrick Henry come very close to 2,000 yards. I don't think the Titans want to, necessarily burn him out right before the playoffs. I don't think Derrick Henry can be burnt out, but the main goal for the team isn't to get Henry to 2,000 yards and get him the MVP. It's to get to the playoffs, ground and pound, win some big-time football games, and go to the Super Bowl and win that. So if I'm Vrabel, I'm probably not, forcing the issue to get Henry to 2,000.
How about Ryan Tannehill? 5 touchdowns on Sunday. 5. What?
You give him a running back and a coach, and he looks a whole lot different than he did in Miami, huh?
I still remember last year when they came in Gillette. I'm like, there's not a chance in hell Ryan Tannehill is going to beat the Patriots in Gillette. And he just played a perfect game. Just a game manager play action off Henry. But now he's more of a passer. I mean, A.J. Brown's lighting it up. Corey Davis is having a crazy, great year. Finally, he's the receiver they hope for. And they drafted him 4th overall.
4th.
Yeah, 4th. Corey Davis. He hasn't been good till year 5. Henry deserves consideration, but you have to also think Russell Wilson's in there as well. He's maybe like the 5th. It would be very hard. But I do think Alex last week said that Rodgers deserves more credit, and I didn't actually look at his numbers until this week. He is having probably the best year of his career this year. And I love how he's just stomping on everyone because they drafted Jordan Love in the 1st round.
40 touchdowns and 4 picks. I mean, it's crazy.
Yeah.
A 10-to-1 touchdown to interception ratio. I mean, you don't see this stuff in Madden.
Pretty good. Pretty damn good.
Derrick Henry
put together a season, and that team's serious.
Derrick Henry deserves consideration for the MVP. And I'm not sure that he couldn't win it with just the season he's having right now. I think for a running back to win it, your team's got to win like 13, 14 games. Or if you're AP, your team has to win 5 games the year you're injured, and then they have to make the playoffs the year you come back and rush for 2,000 yards. I mean, the fact that Tennessee's technically taken a step back, even though Henry's been just as good, if not better, the team's taken a step back, and that's why he's not going to be given legitimate consideration for the MVP, even though he should.
Another thing, too, with the MVP, Brady should be at least probably top 10 in this category. How is he not in the Pro Bowl, but Kyler Murray is? I understand Russell Wilson, Rodgers. I mean, Brady's numbers aren't terrible. He has the TDs, got the yards. He has more interceptions, but I'm just shocked that Brady didn't get in over a young quarterback like Kyler Murray, who, I mean, he's having a good year, but let's be honest, he just throws it up there to Hopkins and he catches it over 4 guys. A lot of that's Hopkins, less than Murray.
Yeah, I'm definitely surprised as well on the Tom Brady, not making the Pro Bowl. A top 10, top 5 passer, top 5 in touchdowns. If he was playing on an incentive-laden deal in Foxborough, he'd be hitting all the incentives this year. It's crazy. He's like top 5 in everything. And, you figure with his popularity and the way that Tampa Bay's embraced him, you figured he'd be up there. Kyler Murray does surprise me a little bit. Feels like he started out pretty hot. He's obviously rushed for a lot of touchdowns too. But, I'm a little bit surprised about that. I feel like Tom Brady is a fan favorite, and I think his jersey's still selling the most or something ridiculous like that. Were there any other big busts that you guys thought?
Record with Brady? Do you think Cardinals have a better record with Brady than Kyler? Because I don't. And that's to me the easiest example for why he shouldn't be in the Pro Bowl versus Kyler. I think if you put Kyler on the Buccaneers, they have just as many wins, and if you put Brady on the Arizona Cardinals, they have less.
I don't think Kyler Murray's necessarily lost that many games this year. I think the defense, it's coming around, but them losing Chandler Jones early in the year definitely hurt them a lot.
My point is Kyler can overcome more. Brady doesn't have the ability to overcome it. You know why Brady's doing so well? Because he's the smartest quarterback in the league with some of the best supporting cast in the league. Kyler doesn't need that. And eventually he will, because he will not be a video game joystick his whole life. But right now, the reason I would vote him to the Pro Bowl over Brady is because if I give Kyler Murray 2 DeAndre Hopkins instead of 1, versus if I give Tom a worse defense and less on offense, I have very little faith that Tom Brady's going to come through on that. At this stage, not all time, but this year.
Fair enough. He's definitely had the most interceptions he's had in years. Brady, that is.
Expected.
Yeah.
Not out of the realms of expectations.
Yeah. And that offensive line in Arizona is not very good. They would be blitzing Brady every game.
Yeah, well, flipping the page to the NBA, tonight is opening night, and we already have a pretty interesting game between the Nets and the Warriors. You would have thought the Warriors would look a little bit more competitive in this one. We're sitting 2 minutes away from a halftime, and Kyrie Irving's got 19 points already. Kevin Durant's got 12 points himself, and they're leading a pretty good attack against the Golden State Warriors. Guys, this is a pretty early example, but just how dangerous can this Nets team be?
I think it's going to be a close game. I think it's going to be a 1-0 game. I think the Warriors are going to come out and play. I think they're going to play their best basketball. I think they're going to win. 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 I think they're going to win They can be crazy dangerous. I'm not giving them all the credit yet. They're playing a fake Warriors team. I mean, yes, they have Steph Curry. Where's
Fake
Klay
win.
Thompson? You know what I mean? Like, come on. Like, this game, the Warriors without Klay, I mean, he's their second best player, future Hall of Famer. I mean, they're really a middle of the road, like back end of the playoff team this year. They've got rookies out there, young guys. It's not the same Warriors team. I mean, I think the Brooklyn's going to be crazy dangerous in the playoffs, but I do expect them to implode via a Kyrie Irving led, mutiny or something of that respect to Steve Nash.
Did you guys watch the game on Friday night when they just came in here like LeBron and Wade with the Heat in that game 6 and just stomped on us? I mean, that was Durant. Durant's getting the ball half court and dribbling it up. I'm surprised Durant's already looking the way he is. I thought it would take some time. I mean, I think there's going to be times this year where he either gets hurt or he's take a couple games off. Freaking Nets are scary. You got LeVert coming off the bench. Dinwiddie will come off the bench. I mean, Joe Harris is perfect for that team. Just stick him in the corner, hit threes. Really do scare me after watching that game. It's like, wow, this is working too well so quickly. I am looking forward to Kyrie Irving having a random occurrence of him just saying something stupid and alienating himself. But if Durant's playing like this, they are very scary. And if they play like that, they'll be 1, maybe 2 in the East this year.
I think your question was how scary they are.
Yeah, I think the Nets can be
Terrifying.
really dangerous. Go ahead.
No, I was just going to say they're terrifying. They really are. I think you all need to hop off Kyrie. I think the team absolutely will mushroom cloud explode. I don't think it'll take Kyrie to do it. I think it'll take basketball players being basketball players. Who is the Terry Rozier of this Nets team? Is it Karis LeVert? Is it Dinwiddie? One of those guys will piss off Kyrie and Durant because they're both soft as tissue paper, and the mental of the team won't hold up. But on the court, this is basketball porn. I mean, the way they constructed this roster on the court is very complimentary with top-end elite talent. I mean, this is how you build it. It's just I don't know that they have between the ears what you need for a locker room, up and down the board.
Oh, yeah, they won't even talk to each other in the locker room, I'm sure. They have their own brands. They'll alienate themselves. I bet you Durant is not even like friends with any of his teammates other than Kyrie or DeAndre, of course, because he's there. They had to get him there just because they're his friend. I still think they're going to make a big trade with all these young guys. At the Rockets, you're going to get LeVert, a couple first-round picks, Dinwiddie, Jared Allen. That's a good foundation to build a team on. Not saying they're all all-stars, but I think if LeVert was a leading scorer on a team, he'd probably put up 20, 23, 24 points a game. I'm not saying
He'd be going to a team with Wall.
He'd get more shots in Houston than he would waiting for Kyrie to give him the ball.
Honestly, I think that the only thing that can implode the Nets season is if they actually trade for James Harden and get rid of LeVert, Allen, and Dinwiddie. Like, that is the worst move the Nets can make, probably, right? Like, you're bringing in an egotistical superstar that demands holding the ball. You're going to have 3 guys that are just demanding the ball constantly. It's going to be an absolute shit show if that happens.
Not only that.
Yeah, I think one of the things about the Nets right now that makes them so dangerous is not only do they have Durant and Irving, they also have, a lot of talent throughout their roster. It's not like the Celtics where it's kind of like max players and then you drop off and have these, they actually have like some really good guys like LeVert, Dinwiddie. They bring in Jared Allen off the bench. I mean, he's better than DeAndre Jordan. He's obviously not starting, but DeAndre Jordan has to start because of Durant and Irving's demands or whatever. And Kyrie Irving putting up 24 at the half here, pretty impressive first game for him. But I just think they're pretty deep throughout. And if they're to give it to if they're to put away some of those pieces to get a guy like Harden, I mean, he just holds the ball way too much to be able to get along with a guy like Irving too. I feel like, just way too much usage between those two guys. So I think that could definitely doom them. But I mean, they look really impressive out of the gate. And I thought it was going to take a lot more time for Durant to come back healthy. I didn't think he'd be this good this quick.
The stories coming out about Harden, like I thought he was a party boy, but there's like Dennis Rodman stories where like when he has days off, he just like flies to Vegas and comes back and like, oh, well, he'll just show up and play. He'll put up 50 a night, so they don't care. When he came out last week looking like a legit homeless person that put on 50 pounds, and he still like played pretty well, but what have you been doing this offseason other than partying?
That press conference was great when they were asking after his first game back, like, and they're like, why were you in Atlanta and like Las Vegas and all that? And he's like, I'm working out. They're like, for what? Like all this. It's like the NBA season.
The only workout he's doing is his curls, just pouring two drinks or drinking each hand.
Yeah, I mean, it really does seem like he's a terrible teammate. Seems like he's late a lot and stuff like that too. So I don't know. Feels like he could be staying in Houston another year. I mean, you guys think he ultimately gets moved, or you think he's going to stay in Houston this year?
I think it'd be stupid for Houston not to trade. Go ahead, Alex. Go ahead, Frank.
Oh, No, I think it's a trade deadline move. I think if you trade him before the deadline, before teams get desperate, what are we even doing here? I mean, you'll never get equal. And I'm not a big James Harden guy, but the fact remains he's a superstar. He's a future Hall of Famer. You're not going to get a future Hall of Famer back. You might not even get an all-star back. So it becomes who's the most desperate and who's going to give us the most. Like the Nets have the most. I'm not convinced the Nets are willing to give the most. And at the end of the day, if you're Houston, you'd rather keep them and sell Harden jerseys if you're going to win the same amount of games and not be any closer to a championship either way.
But if you're Houston, if he's going to walk and you can get the package we're talking about with the Nets, or if you can get Ben Simmons and then flip him in another trade, because obviously Ben Simmons and John Wall can't work on the same team, but Ben Simmons does have a good amount of trade value in the market. Why wouldn't you do that rather than just having him stay there and just leaving eventually anyways and just making everyone's life miserable? I mean,
because he's there for, isn't he there for 3 more years?
No, I think he's got 2 years left. Or they tried to offer him 50 per year, right? And he said no in this offseason. They should just trade him to the worst team. Like, trade him to the Knicks. Just like trade him to the worst franchise ever.
Why haven't the Knicks come up? I understand why he wouldn't go to the Knicks. Why have the Knicks not been brought up by any public? Is there any reason not to get Harden? Like, who on the Knicks is stopping you from getting Harden? RJ Barrett's the next guy. I like Barrett. I do. He is never going to be James Harden. If you're the Knicks and nobody's going to come to your games anyway, why not get the superstar?
Who are you going to trade? Like, you can't tell me that the Nets package is worse compared to the Knicks. The Knicks don't have. Who do they have? They give him Julius Randle.
The Nets have the best package. I just don't think the Nets are willing to give up everything that we think they're willing to give up. And then it becomes a matter of who's actually offering what to Houston.
Yeah, but then comes the league of the players where Kevin Durant and Kyrie go to the owners or the GM's office and says, hey, we need this guy. Even if Steve Nash doesn't want him, I guarantee you Kevin Durant's got more say in that franchise than anybody else. Kevin Durant he's played with Harden before.
Yeah, I would tend to agree with you. No, I'm just saying I do feel like Durant is the guy that's probably got the most say on that team. And for that reason, I feel like he's probably not going to be inclined to bring in a guy like Harden. I mean, I just feel like, they have played together before, but, I don't know. I think if you really want to win games, you can't bring in Harden. I mean, you want to put up nice stats and have some blowout wins, but I don't know.
But on the court, it's kind of like Antonio Brown going to the Bucks. The talent's there. In the locker room, he's a disaster. But if they can make it work on the court, who is going to beat them with those 3?
I just really feel like it's going to be tough to make that work. When you have 2 guys in Kyrie and Harden that are going to that need to have the ball in their hands to be effective. Durant can do it off the ball, but
they got to call Phil Jackson, get the triangle offense back. He's probably doing some Buddha shit somewhere. He's doing nothing. Get him back, bring the triangle offense back.
The basis of the triangle offense is having 2 stars stars to isolate with, i.e. isosceles triangle. That's the whole point of it. If you don't have Shaq and Kobe or Pippen and Jordan, the triangle doesn't work. Ask Derek Fisher what happens when you run the triangle with Andrea Bargnani, Carmelo Anthony, and Jeremy Lin.
I mean, they have DeAndre Jordan. He's an all-star.
You need 2 great isolation players for the triangle offense to work, and the Nets would have 3 in that case. That offense wouldn't work for them.
So, guys, let's look to the other game tonight. Obviously, between the 2 LA teams, and the Lakers just seem to get stronger and stronger. They add Marc Gasol. They add the two best bench players in the game for my money, in Montrezl Harrell and Dennis Schroeder. You know, the rich kind of keep getting richer there. You got to figure that Anthony Davis is probably poised for an MVP type season. I mean, the Lakers look pretty strong to repeat. What do you guys think about both of those teams when it comes to how good they're going to be this year? The Clippers, obviously, they add Ty Lue, and that they have everybody. Everybody was talking about Kawhi like a year or two ago, but the talks have kind of quieted down there. Around the Clippers. So what do you guys think for both of those teams moving forward into this year?
I'll go. I mean, The Lakers, the rich do in fact get richer. I mean, the Lakers, I think today are much better than they were in the bubble. And they were short in the bubble. I mean, they were minus Avery Bradley in the bubble. They weren't even full strength there. TBT, who apparently Rich Paul's been scouting since high school, looks like a fantastic find for the Lakers. Looks like just a wonderful depth player with a tremendous amount of upside for a team that won't be having a lot of first-round picks or a lot of high upside opportunities with their max contracts. I think the Lakers look great. The Clippers are going to need to rework their roster because eventually that's where the mutiny's coming. You guys kept talking about Kyrie. The mutiny's coming from Kawhi. Mr. I'm a top 10 player all time, but I can't practice on Tuesdays. Like, that team clearly did not like him last year. A team that had already won 50 games the year, or sorry, a little under 50 games the year before, did not like him and only won marginally more games.
That's very true.
Lakers are going to be fine. Go ahead. No, go ahead.
And I was going to say that the Clippers, the problem is Kawhi's got so much power, and Paul George is just so hesitant to man up and just take over. You can't have him play in that secondary role. He needs to be putting up, some games 30, 40 points. And you don't even know what you're going to get from Kawhi most games. Like, is he going to play? Is he not going to play? And he worked in Toronto because he was in a 1-year deal. They wanted him to stay, so they put up with his BS. And he got him a championship. But now it's like, that team got worse. They lost Harrell. I don't even know who else they got. Like, who's playing center for them?
Ibaka.
They replaced Trez with Ibaka.
All right, he's an older version. He's okay. But is Beverly back this year?
Yes, Beverly's back.
Yeah.
Beverly's huge. Any defense? I don't know. I think that the Clippers will finish like 3rd, maybe 4th in the Western Conference this year. I think the Nuggets are going to step up. I don't doubt the Golden State Warriors either. I know you guys are saying that they don't have the talent this year. They got Kelly Oubre, Wiggins, James Wiseman. You never know with that team.
Yeah. I mean, it seems like, obviously the Lakers are in great position to repeat again. I mean, the GMs were pulled, and everyone pretty much thinks the Lakers are in position to run it back. Someone else they think is going to run it back is Giannis Antetokounmpo for MVP, picking him to win for a 3rd straight year. And that brings us to tomorrow. We have a full slate of games, including the Celtics' first game, where they're going to be facing off against the Bucks.
Let's go.
The Bucks have obviously tweaked a little bit and brought in a 3rd star, if you want to call it that, in Jrue Holiday. The Bucks, I think they're going to be a great regular season team again. But, what are you guys looking for in terms of who's going to come out of the East this year?
I do think it's going to be the Nets. The Bucks are going to be great again, but they're going to come up short. I think the Heat showed you last year. I beat Giannis. Jrue Holiday isn't enough to change that alone. If they got Bogdanovich like they tried to this offseason, got that shooting, got that extra help on the wing, I would feel a little bit differently and much more confident in the Bucks. But right now, I don't think it's the Bucks coming out of the East. I think that we're probably going to see the Nets come out. We're going to see the Heat fall back a little bit. We're going to see the Celtics fall back a little bit. I don't think, unless they aren't facing either the Nets or the Bucks, neither team will probably make the conference finals. But it's going to be a really interesting year. I just think the Nets are definitely world beaters. So we'll see what happens.
Celtics are coming out of the East. I've thought about this a lot over the last couple of days, and I just feel Jason Tatum is that guy or he isn't. But as the three of you know, I believe he is that guy. I know Miami's going to take a step back. I know Giannis is not going to take that next level because until he can shoot 32, 33% from three, they're just going to build a wall and he's going to foul a lot of games charging people. I believe the Nets have the most talent. I don't really think any of us would debate that. I have no faith in them. So when I'm talking about teams that have top-end talent and that I think I can rely on, I legitimately think that my team is the favorite. I mean, I really do. And I don't think that we'll finish first in the conference. I think we'll get to the finals.
I want to be with you, Frank. Kemba is this year. If Kemba is this whole year going to be, 50% of Kemba. I mean, last year we had Hayward for, bits and pieces. I know that Tristan Thompson and Teague were nice ads. It's just, where is the scoring going to come from off the bench? Like, I still don't see. I mean, I haven't seen much from the kid we drafted in the first round. I know we can shoot, but I want a veteran shooter. Give me a JJ Redick with that exception we have. Give me a shooter. We need more shooting with this team because there are going to be games where Tatum he just doesn't have it. Give it to Jalen, that's great. But if Kemba's not there, who are those points going to? Because I swear to God, if Marcus Smart shooting 43s a game, you're not going anywhere. We'll see. I do think a team that's going to take a step up, though, is the 76ers. Getting Horford out is huge for them because Tobias Harris could put up 20 points a game. They got better with their bench. Didn't they get Curry? They got a couple other players. If you can make Simmons and Embiid work, that team's pretty scary.
But you can't.
I know. Ben Simmons.
If you could, it would work, but you can't.
I know. It's so sad. Embiid's such a piece of garbage, and Ben Simmons doesn't care. At least I'll stop yelling up and down.
Because they're two of. If we're talking just ceiling, sorry to segue. If we're talking just ceiling, Simmons and Embiid are both top 10 players in the league, and they can't play together. Simmons apparently has no desire to shoot, and Embiid has even less desire to stay in shape or even play a full season. It's crazy.
I will agree with Justin on this, though. I do think the 76ers and getting Daryl Morey, probably get the best executive in the NBA. I think they made some great shakeups in bringing in Danny Green, shedding the contract of Horford. Obviously, we don't know what Dwight Howard has in this point in his career, but I think that's a nice move for them as well, to have him in there backing up Embiid. And obviously it's a huge if, but if you could ever get Embiid to take things seriously, I mean, that guy could be a walking 30 and 15. I mean, He was almost a 30 and 15, 30 pounds out of shape last year in the playoff. It was walking up the court and still putting up 30 and 15 against the Celtics. So I think we kind of look past them because the Celtics dismantled them so quickly in the playoffs. But I do think they are going to come back a little bit this year. And I mean, I don't think they're necessarily going to make it work between Simmons and Embiid, but I think they will be a little bit better and probably somebody that's going to figure into the mix in the Eastern Conference.
Yeah, not just them, but you make a great point. Seth Curry's there. Danny Green's there. They've got shooters on that team now, and that's what you need when you have two dominant interior presences like Ben Simmons and Embiid. Just get Ben to start taking threes. Like, if you can't get Simmons to start taking threes, no one's ever going to take him seriously, and he's going to be a liability on the court, and they're never going to go anywhere. It's that simple. Ben Simmons, if you're listening right now, I hope you've been working on your jump shot. Otherwise, guess what? You're going to be the reason the Sixers don't do anything in the playoffs.
So a couple of years ago when this team was, Embiid was finally healthy and it was coming together, Joel Embiid was passionate on the court. He wanted to win. And I just feel like the coach that was there for so many years just let them do whatever they wanted. Him and Simmons, yeah, you guys can, eat grapes on the sideline before the game. Ben, you want to go to a GQ shoot before the game? Go for it. No one cares. You need an authoritarian coach there. Doc Rivers is not that person. I don't know who that person is, but the only way it's going to work is you have to have someone that holds you guys accountable. Doc Rivers is good at managing people, but he's not good at – I think he's very overrated, to be honest. But if it ever work, you just need them both to buy in. And Embiid, I think, will be easier to buy in than Simmons because Simmons doesn't even want to shoot. I mean, if Giannis can develop a three-point shot, 35%. If Marcus Smart can shoot close to 35%, Ben Simmons, you better be able to shoot 30%. And it's just not going to happen.
I agree with you. You could compare him to like Giannis literally couldn't shoot. And if he can get to 35%, I mean, we don't need Simmons to be a guy that's going to be a knockdown shooter. But if he could even be somewhat of a threat, even Rajon Rondo developed somewhat of a shot later in his career. It can be done.
And one more thing I'll say, too. Jimmy Butler leaving was the worst thing that could have happened to that team. Because that's a guy that goes into the gym every single morning for everybody else and pushes people, holds them accountable. And then you bring in Al Horford, Mr. Nice Guy. And it's just like, yeah, do whatever you want. Jimmy Butler there, and even if Tobias Harris left and they brought someone else in there, I think they would have gone a lot farther last year than they did with Horford and Harris.
If you get a coach that's more akin to Jimmy Butler and put Jimmy Butler back with Embiid, you get magic. If you name them, Quinn Snyder, Mike Budenholzer, Tom Thibodeau, name any coach with any sack who's not just going to lay down to his owner or star player, and you get Jimmy Butler and that mentality and the lead by example, and you let it work, that team would have been. Simmons wouldn't have stayed. Harris wouldn't have stayed. But Embiid wouldn't still be the same guy. Embiid's like he is because the one time he got that swift kick in the nuts by a teammate, the coach didn't have that teammate's back. If Brett Brown had any nuts, Jimmy Butler would have had a positive rub-off on Embiid.
Oh, 100%. It's crazy. That team has so much talent, and I think they're better this year than they were last year with the pieces they've added. They just don't have any balls.
Sure.
None of them do.
So rank the top 5 teams in the East in order, guys. Who wants to start?
Me.
Let's hear it.
Boston, Milwaukee, Toronto, Philly, Brooklyn. Fuck Brooklyn.
Oh, man. All right. Well, I'm going to go Nets number 1. I'll probably go the Bucks number 2, Celtics 3, Heat 4, 5 the Sixers, 5 the Raptors. I think the Raptors fall off a cliff though, kind of. I'm going to go 5 Sixers. I think the Sixers get a much better year with Doc as the coach.
I'll have to go Bucks 1, Nets 2, Sixers 3, Celtics 4, Heat 5.
Whoa.
I'm going to go Bucks 1, Celtics 2, Nets 3, 76ers 4, and I think the Pacers are going to be the 5 seed.
Wow. Okay.
I think no one's talking about the Pacers. They actually have a decent squad. If everybody comes back healthy this year, Malcolm Brogdon at point, Miles Turner at center, you have Sabonis at power forward. You have T.J. Warren, obviously the most improved player in the bubble last year. Was putting up like 30 a game in the bubble. I think you have a team that's got some pretty good talent that no one's really talking about in the Pacers. I think they're kind of like a dark horse in the Eastern Conference.
Sabonis could be the most underrated player in the whole conference. He's a beast.
Can he shoot threes?
Yes. Not strongly, but I mean, I think eventually they're going to trade Miles Turner because it just like kind of doesn't work.
Did you guys see it finally came out that the Pacers that Anthony Davis was entertaining a trade to the Pacers while Paul George was on the team, and the Pacers, I guess, had what it took to get a deal done, and for whatever reason, or bring in Anthony Davis as a free agent, the Pacers were like, no, we're not doing this, we're not entertaining this offer. Can you believe that? But that's the Pacers though. Whoever their best player is, he's not going to be there for long. They're a small market team. They don't believe in doing what the Celtics are doing, what the Warriors did, which is you're going to have to go into the luxury tax to win a championship. It's extremely rare to win a championship if you're not in the luxury tax.
So when Paul George was talking about getting a free agent, and everybody said it was Paul Millsap, and I said, no chance. This is more what it sounds like. Yes, they had the pieces for Anthony Davis. Yes, at that time, Anthony Davis would have came here, and no, that stupid organization didn't put all their eggs in one basket. Even if you put those two together and they both leave, that one season will generate more revenue than any bottom-feeding stuff that you're doing right now.
Yep.
Man, talk about Davis going from one honky-tonk town to Indiana. Now he's living that LA life with LeBron. Times have changed. That team would have been scary. Back then, Pacers, when George was
Paul George was scary. That Paul George was on the cusp of something great.
Yeah. They almost took down those Heat teams. I mean, they were a good team.
I loved Hibbert.
With
that
Hibbert. With Roy Hibbert.
Hibbert was kind of nice, man. He had some great games. He really did. He was like a 22-10 guy.
He had a great ability to stand there with his hands up at 7-2 from Georgetown.
Bill, I will say the Pacers are I forgot about them. That backcourt, if Oladipo's healthy, is probably the best defensive backcourt in the NBA. And they have additional scorers. Their bench, they have shooters like Holiday's brothers on that team. They have a couple no-name guys that all they do is shoot threes. How come we can't get one of those guys? Just like we could never get a center.
We kind of just did. We just got Naismith. So Pritchard's a pretty good three-point shooter as well. And I expect them to be hitting some bombs this year. Coming in as rookies, Naismith, 53% from three at Nova last year, and he's looking good so far. I think we just got a guy like that.
That's good. I'm glad to hear it. Pritchard's a better version of McConnell. I'm a big TJ McConnell fan. I think if he gets on the court, he's a pest, and he just makes things happen. You
like McConnell because he's wet in 2K.
That's true, and he's 5'6", and he's white. I thought that was a great – and no one talked about him in the draft. They talked about our first pick. He's going to be a good player. Hopefully that means that's less time Marcus Smart has the ball.
Smart's a good facilitator. He's a bad scorer. Marcus Smart should have the ball in his hands when our bench is on the court. Somebody needs to get through to him and tell him to stop shooting shots when he's not open. Marcus Smart's a very good passer and a very good point guard. He can't get out of his own head.
Brad's terrified of Marcus Smart, I feel like. He'll never say, don't shoot. He'll hit one in the early part of the game, and you're like, oh, no, here it comes. Here comes 15 of these things. And then there are games where he's hot, and you're like, this is amazing. And then he misses one, and then he misses 7 straight, and you're just like, why? Give it to someone that's good at it.
Well, guys, before we wrap up, the other big story of the day is a big Green Team announcement. Paul Pierce headlining the Hall of Fame class this year. And it looks like he could potentially be a first ballot Hall of Famer. You guys think Paul Pierce is a first ballot Hall of Famer?
Absolutely. You cannot tell the history of the NBA without Paul Pierce. You can't do it. You can't do it. He stopped Kobe from getting his 3-second three-peat. And that Celtics team, I mean, they were no nonsense. That was a crazy squad. And you know what? I loved everything Pierce did. He was a top 5 player at one point in time in the NBA. You can quote me on that. He was absolutely so much fun to watch. Wasn't the most athletic guy. What?
Top what?
Top 5?
What was the numbers you gave?
Top 5, not 1, 2, 3, or 4. Top 5 in the NBA, not 1, 2, 3, or 4 at one point in time. Yes.
Hey, Alex, what's
top
the difference?
5?
Alex,
top
what's
5.
the difference? What's
2003, 2004, I believe. He had an unbelievable year, and he was in the MVP race.
But what's the difference?
Was he better than Shaq?
No.
Was he better than Kobe? Was he better than Iverson? Do you want me to keep going?
At that point in time, yes, he was better than Iverson.
That's
was
crazy.
he better than KD?
No. Paul Pierce should be in the Hall of Fame, but first ballot, I don't know. Like if Joe Johnson and Paul Pierce had different careers, they're the same player, and then Paul Pierce got obviously Garnett and Allen. I love Paul Pierce, my favorite Celtic I've ever watched. But to say he's a first ballot is, I don't know about that one. Like, who else is in the class this year?
Honestly, it's not a lot of other great guys. Doug Collins is also there. You have guys like I think like yeah.
Heard.
You also have guys like Rip Hamilton. I mean, it's honestly not like a big class that they're headlining this year.
Well, then he better get in this year.
I think Paul Pierce is
NBA.
an incredible player. But I do kind of agree with it, what everyone's saying. I don't think he was ever a top 5 player in the league. Like you look at it, he was an all-NBA second teamer one time, and he was an all-NBA third teamer a couple times. But I mean, I think you're talking more like a top 15 player in the game, probably than a top 5. I mean, great player, won a championship. And you probably can't tell the story of the NBA. I mean, he's a 10-time all-star, but I just don't know if he's a first ballot Hall of Famer.
2006, he had 27 points per game, 1.4 steals per game, 7 rebounds a game.
How many wins? Can you tell us how many wins?
Hey,
Can you tell me how many wins?
Hey, Alex, what was Gilbert Arenas' numbers that year too on the Wizards?
Yeah, thank you.
I love Paul Pierce, but yeah, top 5. That's
Also,
probably first.
One of my last comments. It is the NBA Hall of Fame. I feel like that's always important when talking about Hall of Fames. This isn't hockey. This isn't the NFL. In the NBA, first ballot Hall of Famer doesn't mean nearly as much as in any other sport. Like Tarny Archibald's in the Hall of Fame. And there's a lot of players in the NBA Hall of Fame that don't belong in the Hall of Fame. Paul Pierce is the first ballot Hall of Famer. And at his best, he was probably somewhere between 8 and 13. I mean, he wasn't quite a top 5 player, but he was great. He was unbelievable. But he didn't stop Kobe from getting a second 3-peat. I believe that was Kevin Garnett. Like, I love Paul Pierce to death. That 08 Celtics team, the 04 Red Sox, the 2000 Patriots, the 01 Patriots. Those are like my favorite teams of my adolescence. But Paul Pierce has never been a top 5 player in any one year in the NBA. That's my IMO.
Talking about Hall of Fames, you literally have to kill someone to get in the Baseball Hall of Fame. Like,
Right?
Ken Griffey got first ballot for the first time ever. Derek Jeter somehow got in first ballot, which is ridiculous. But baseball, you literally have to murder someone. Like Kurt Schilling will die soon, and he will not make it. But then all these guys make it every year.
He shouldn't.
Some guy, what?
Kurt Schilling is like the poster child of just not good enough. Like Kurt Schilling should be the guy at the pearly gates of baseball's Hall of Fame opening the doors for Randy Johnson. He just wasn't good enough to get in. He was close, just wasn't good enough. It's essentially the same thing that happened with Kurt Warner, except the NFL messed up and let him in.
He was always the second best pitcher on the team, never the best.
Ed Brad says there's no such thing as the NBA Hall of Fame. I'd love for him to follow up on that.
Well, it's weird. Like, it's the NBA, but it's also like the WNBA. Like college coaches get into the NBA Hall of Fame. Like, I don't understand what it is. It's just basketball.
Yeah, I mean, that's one of the things I was going to say is like when they listed off this Hall of Fame class, like half of them are like WNBA players and stuff like that.
Yeah, I mean, they might let Stephon Marbury in from the China leagues pretty soon. Like, it's just basketball. There's no affiliation. They'll probably let Taco Fall in when he ends up his career in the G League. He'll put up ridiculous numbers in Maine.
Well, hell, on a Taco Fall note, Merry Christmas to all, and to all a good night. We appreciate you tuning in with us. Paul Pierce headlining the Hall of Fame class, and we appreciate you all tuning in with us. We will see you after Christmas next Tuesday. Catch you then.
Antoine Walker better get in too. And Rafe LaFrance.
Hey, Flip Friends.